There are verses in the Qur'an that move gently through the soul, and there are verses that shake the unseen world to its core. Surah Al-Baqarah belongs to the second kind. Its sound carries a force that the jinn cannot withstand, not because of volume, but because of the truth woven into every letter. Ibn Arabi said that when divine light enters a space, anything built on falsehood collapses instantly. Surah Al-Baqarah is that descending light. Where it is recited, the unseen tightens, recoils, and breaks apart. Darkness has no ground beneath it, no breath within it. When this surah flows through a home or a heart, it is not simply recitation, it is a rising of spiritual authority, a declaration that the soul stands under the protection of the eternal. This is why the jinn fear it, not for its sound, but for the world it opens. In this journey, you will uncover how this surah becomes a fortress, a purifier, and a command in the unseen that no jinn can challenge. Here, the hidden realm bends not to the reader, but to the one whose words you carry on your tongue. Darkness does not fear the seeker. It fears what the seeker carries when the word of Allah enters their heart. There is a moment when a verse is not just recited, but time's unleashed asterisk, and its light rushes outward like a tide returning to its source. Ibn Arabi taught that every verse contains a world, and some worlds burn with a fire so pure that no shadow can remain standing. Such is the power within Surah Al-Baqarah. It returns every fragment of darkness to the void it came from. This turning back is not loud or violent. It is subtle, like dawn dissolving night without struggle. When the verse flows from the tongue of a believer, it becomes a mirror that reveals what cannot coexist with divine light. Darkness sees its own end reflected in that mirror. It retreats not because it is pushed, but because it no longer has a place to hide. The verse reorders the unseen, reminding every hidden force of the one whose command governs all realms. Darkness carries no strength of its own. It survives through deception, confusion, and emptiness. But when Al-Baqarah is recited, the emptiness fills with meaning, the confusion straightens into clarity, and deception loses its voice. The verse becomes a wind moving through unseen corridors, sweeping away every whisper that once clung to the edges of the believer's heart. It is not the seeker who fights it, it is revelation itself that establishes dominion. There are layers within these verses that the eye cannot catch. Ibn Arabi said the Qur'an carries not only sound, but presence, not only meaning, but command. When certain verses descend upon a space, they do not simply inform, they transform. The unseen world feels the weight long before humans perceive anything. Darkness recognizes the arrival of a decree that dismantles its influence like a fragile structure built in a storm. When recited with sincerity, Al-Baqarah does not merely enter the air, it enters the unseen fabric of the home. It threads itself through the corners, the walls, the silent spaces. It is like pouring light into the cracks of the world, forcing everything hidden to reveal its true nature. Darkness cannot mimic faith when this verse passes. It exposes every distortion, every footprint left behind, every lie it once planted. The verse works not by force, but by alignment. It realigns the space with divine order. Darkness thrives in imbalance, feeding on disorder and neglect. But Al-Baqarah restores everything to its rightful orientation. As the verse spreads through the unseen, the false illusions that darkness built collapse silently. What once seemed powerful becomes nothing but smoke thinning in the morning sun. Ibn Arabi described darkness as a guest that overstays only when the host forgets the light. These verses remind the heart of the one who owns the house. The heart regains its authority, not through ego, but through remembrance. As remembrance takes root, darkness loses the shelter of forgetfulness and must return to its origin, a place with no presence, no influence, no breath. Sometimes the verse acts like a sword, slicing through dense shadows. Sometimes it acts like water, washing away old stains. Sometimes it acts like fire, burning the remnants of unseen harm, and sometimes it acts like silence, dissolving what cannot survive stillness. The form changes, but the effect remains. Darkness is undone by the truth embedded in every letter. The power of Al-Baqarah does not depend on volume, it depends on sincerity. A whisper recited with presence is stronger than a loud recitation spoken without heart. The verse responds to the state of the soul that carries it. When the seeker recites with longing and awareness, the light intensifies, stretching far beyond the physical world. Darkness feels the approach, even before the sound touches the air. Revelation carries memory, the memory of divine command. Every jinn, every unseen force, knows what was written before time began. When Al-Baqarah is recited, that memory awakens. It reminds the unseen of the first obedience, the first prostration, the first command that shaped existence. Darkness has no choice but to bow and retreat, for it stands before an authority that preceded its very creation. The verse also purifies the heart from within. Darkness often enters not through external forces, but through inner windows left open by loneliness, fear, or neglect. As the verse fills the soul, those windows close. A calm spreads, a certainty settles, and the heart becomes a sanctuary guarded from every direction. Before darkness is turned back, the heart is turned inward, toward the one who protects it. The unseen world responds to spiritual posture. When the believer recites Al-Baqarah with humility, the heart becomes a vessel for divine protection. This posture makes the verse radiant. Recited from a cold tongue, the verse is sound. Recited from a warm heart, it is fire. And it is this fire that sends darkness back into the emptiness where it loses all form. There is a moment during recitation where the atmosphere changes, even if the seeker does not notice it. The unseen feels it instantly. A shift occurs, a thinning of the veil, a tightening of the air. Darkness senses that its time in that space is ending. It retreats step by step, drawn backward by the force of remembrance that wraps the room. Al-Baqarah does not only remove darkness, it seals the space behind it. It leaves behind a fragrance of protection, a light that continues to glow even after the recitation ends. The home becomes a garden for angels, a place where tranquility settles like fresh dew. The unseen world recognizes that the believer has placed divine truth at the center of their realm. The verse also awakens the inner warrior, the spiritual strength hidden beneath doubt and routine. When the seeker recites with conviction, their soul stands tall in the unseen. Darkness cannot approach a heart awakened to its origin. The verse becomes not only protection, but empowerment, reminding the believer of their true position before Allah. Ibn Arabi spoke of verses that act like mirrors, showing the unseen its own reality. Al-Baqarah is one such mirror. When darkness approaches, it sees itself reflected with no distortion. It cannot pretend, cannot hide, cannot deceive. Confronted with its own nature, it recognizes it does not belong in the company of divine light. It must turn back. Every recited letter becomes a command echoed across realms. The unseen hears this echo long after the sound fades. These echoes form layers of protection, building a barrier of light that darkness cannot penetrate. It becomes like a fortress built from revelation itself, standing firm against anything that whispers harm. In some moments, the verse strikes darkness like lightning. In others, it dissolves it like sunlight warming frost. But always, it returns it to the nothingness from which it came. For darkness has no true existence. It survives only in places where light has not yet reached. Al-Baqarah ensures that even the hidden corners receive illumination. The seeker who recites becomes a carrier of this illumination. Their heart shines in the unseen, like a lantern lifted high. Darkness recognizes this glow and flees. For wherever the verse settles, the authority of Allah reigns, and nothing created can resist that authority. The verse teaches the seeker a deeper truth. Darkness is not something to fear, but something that vanishes when truth is present. Al-Baqarah does not merely push darkness away, it reveals its emptiness. It shows that falsehood cannot stand before the eternal light of revelation, and with each recitation, the seeker is reminded of the one who turns all shadows back to their origin. With every verse, the unseen rearranges itself, bowing to the command embedded in the words of Allah, until all darkness withdraws and only light remains. There are verses that soften the heart, and there are verses that redraw the boundaries of the unseen itself. Surah Al-Baqarah belongs to the latter. Its recitation opens gates, made not of stone or sound, but of divine command. These gates rise between realms, marking where light is allowed to enter and where darkness must halt. It is not the seeker who builds these gates. It is the word of Allah establishing its own borders. When these verses are recited with presence, a shift occurs that most hearts feel before they understand. The air becomes steadier, the space quieter, as if creation itself pauses to listen. In this pause, a boundary appears unseen to the eye, yet unmistakable to anything that dwells in the hidden world. Nothing harmful can pass through, for the gate is sealed with divine authority. The unseen recognizes limits we cannot see. Ibn Arabi taught that every revelation carries an architecture, a structure that shapes both the visible and the hidden. Al-Baqarah creates such a structure wherever it is recited. It is as though the verses weave a wall of light that rises from the ground to the heavens. Jinn sense this wall instantly. They approach, feel the force behind it, and turn away, knowing the space is no longer theirs to enter. These gates do not depend on physical strength. They are built from obedience and remembrance. When a believer recites even a few lines with a sincere heart, the unseen begins to reorganize around them. Forces that once roamed freely now find pathways blocked. Plans once whispered dissolve. The verse does not fight, it simply prohibits, and that prohibition is enough to stop what would dare to cross. Al-Baqarah does not merely protect, it reclaims. It takes back territory the believer never knew had been invaded. It pushes out subtle shadows that linger in neglected corners, closing the entry points through which harm once traveled. As the gates rise, the home becomes a sanctuary where divine peace descends like a protective canopy. The unseen knows this place is guarded. To the seeker, these gates may feel like calmness spreading through the room, or a sudden stillness inside the chest. To the unseen, they are firm, impenetrable barriers made of pure decree. They cannot be tricked, bribed, or bypassed. Their authority comes from the one whose words created light and shadow alike. Nothing created can cross what he has sealed. When recited regularly, the gates grow stronger, brighter, more expansive. They stretch into the unseen corridors of the home, locking every doorway except those permitted by Allah. Even angels move differently in such a space, for they recognize the fragrance of revelation and gather around it with reverence. Darkness, unable to withstand this presence, withdraws fully. Ibn Arabi described protection as a state in which the heart aligns with divine intention. Al-Baqarah brings the heart into that alignment. When the gates rise, it is not only the home that becomes guarded, the believer's inner world becomes fortified as well. The thoughts that once opened inward doors to fear or doubt now find themselves shielded by remembrance. The power of these gates lies not only in protection, but in revelation. They expose what once moved silently in the unseen. Whispers become faint, shadows become transparent. The believer gains clarity, a spiritual sight that senses when something is wrong even before signs appear. The verses sharpen the inner intuition that Allah placed within the soul. Darkness tests the gates from time to time, approaching with old habits and forgotten whispers. But every attempt ends the same way. It finds the path blocked, the entry sealed, the permission denied. The authority of Al-Baqarah does not weaken with time. It intensifies with repetition, becoming a permanent command etched into the unseen environment. For the believer who feels vulnerable, these verses offer more than comfort. They offer sovereignty. The gates remind the unseen world that the believer is not alone, not helpless, not unguarded. The angels stand at these gates by the permission of Allah, watching over the space with unwavering loyalty. This is why the unseen fears this surah. Its authority is absolute. Even the parts of oneself that feel lost or fragile find shelter behind these gates. The verse does not only guard against external harm, it shields the heart from internal storms. When negative thoughts gather, they encounter the same barriers darkness does. Hope finds room to grow, while fear loses the ground it once tried to claim. The gates also create a spiritual silence, a kind of inner grounding. In that silence, the believer feels closer to their Lord, more receptive to guidance. This silence is not emptiness, it is the presence of protection. The unseen world cannot disturb a heart surrounded by the light of revelation. The gates keep distractions out, letting the soul breathe freely. These gates are not visible, yet their effect is unmistakable. A home touched by Al-Baqarah feels different, calmer, steadier, lighter. Visitors may sense peace without knowing why. Children sleep better. Arguments fade quickly. This is the quiet miracle of the gates. They transform the atmosphere itself, making it inhospitable to anything impure. There are moments when the believer recites and feels a warmth rise within. This warmth is part of the gate's formation. As remembrance deepens, the heart becomes a partner in the protection, radiating light outward. The unseen world sees this radiance clearly, even if the believer does not. It is a sign that the gates have been activated from within and without. Ibn Arabi described words of Allah as bridges between realms. Al-Baqarah builds not one bridge, but many, connecting the seeker to divine aid, connecting the home to angelic presence, connecting the heart to its true center. These bridges strengthen the gates, making the boundary around the believer unbreakable. When recited at night, the gates stand watch over sleep. Night is the time when the unseen moves most freely, yet it is also the time when this surah shines its strongest. Its verses stretch across the unseen like a fortress wall glowing through the dark, leaving no passage for harm to approach. Sleep becomes worship, and dreams become peaceful. When recited in hardship, the gates respond with protection and clarity. They filter out the noise of anxiety, allowing the heart to hear what truly matters. The unseen attempts to amplify fear, but the gates refuse to let its whispers enter. The believer finds strength rising from a place within. They had long forgotten a place guarded by the verse itself. The greatest mystery of these gates is that they open for light but close for darkness. They permit what benefits the soul and reject what harms it. In this way, they do not imprison the believer. They free them from unseen burdens, from heavy influences, from hidden disturbances they never recognized. The seeker learns that these gates are not merely barriers, they are invitations. Invitations to a life anchored in protection, clarity, and divine presence. Surah Al-Baqarah does not only keep darkness out, it creates a space where light can flourish. A space where the unseen bows to the command of Allah, and where the believer stands guarded, guided, and held. There is a fire woven into the verses of Allah, a fire not born of heat, but of truth. Surah Al-Baqarah carries this hidden blaze within every syllable, a luminous force that awakens when recited with sincerity. Ibn Arabi taught that divine words carry their own breath, their own movement, and their own protection. When these verses enter a home or heart, the fire within them rises quietly, burning away the unseen harm that once tried to settle there. It is a fire that purifies, not destroys. This hidden flame does not announce itself with sound or spectacle. It spreads like dawn rising behind the mountains, silently, irresistibly, with a light that reveals what darkness had concealed. To the eyes of the unseen, this flame is blinding. Jinn feel its approach like a wall of heat they cannot cross. It strips away their disguises, exposes their whispers, and ends their influence without struggle. Light requires no battle to defeat absence. It simply fills the emptiness until nothing of the shadow remains. The believer often feels this fire as warmth in the chest, or as a sudden clarity that settles over a once troubled thought. These inner sensations are signs that the verses have begun their work. The fire moves through the heart first, cleansing doubt, fear, and spiritual heaviness. Once the heart is lit, the flame expands outward, reaching every corner of the unseen world that surrounds the believer. Protection begins inside, then radiates outward like a lantern carried through darkness. Ibn Arabi spoke of divine words as sparks that ignite dormant truths within the soul. When Al-Baqarah is recited, these sparks land upon the heart, awakening remembrance. This remembrance itself becomes fire, a fire that burns illusions, dissolves hidden anxieties, and exposes every thread of deception that once influenced the believer. What remains is clarity, a spiritual brightness that darkness cannot withstand. This fire does not harm those who seek Allah. It embraces them. It warms the cold places within the soul, the forgotten corners where loneliness, confusion, or sadness lingered. The fire touches these places gently, turning them into grounds of healing. For the believer, it becomes a source of comfort. For the unseen forces that intend harm, it becomes a barrier none of them dare approach. When the verse is recited with humility, the fire intensifies. It grows brighter, sharper, more radiant. The unseen feels this shift immediately. What once moved freely around the believer now flees, unable to bear the intensity of divine presence. The verse does not need to shout. The fire hidden within it speaks with an authority older than creation. Even the most stubborn whispers of harm scatter like ash in a storm. This hidden flame also unmasks what pretends to be harmless. Darkness rarely arrives. As darkness, it disguises itself as comfort, distraction, or harmless thought. But when the fire of Al-Baqarah rises, these disguises burn away. The believer begins to see the unseen influences behind their struggles, patterns, and fears. Recognition itself becomes protection, for nothing disguised can survive a heart illuminated by truth. There are moments when the fire feels like a shield surrounding the believer. It becomes a spiritual boundary that harmful forces cannot bypass. This shield is not built by human effort. It is granted by divine permission. As long as the believer remains connected to the verse, the shield remains strong, bright, and unbreachable. It is the unseen armor worn by those who rely on Allah. Sometimes the fire works gently, like embers warming a cold night. Sometimes it erupts, like lightning, severing attachments the believer never recognized as harmful. The form changes according to the need of the moment. Ibn Arabi taught that divine protection is tailored to the heart that receives it, always precise, always perfect, always guided by the one who knows what the soul requires. When recited in a home, this fire purifies the space. It cleanses the walls of lingering energies, dissolves the footprints of unseen visitors, and leaves behind a tranquility that even children can sense. The home becomes lighter, quieter, more alive. The fire does not consume, it transforms, making every corner a vessel for peace. Angels gather where this fire burns, drawn to the light of remembrance. For those battling unseen disturbances, this hidden fire becomes a companion. It walks with them, sleeps near them, rises when they rise. It settles into the very atmosphere of their lives, making them feel supported even in solitude. The unseen world observes this light and withdraws, for nothing can approach a soul surrounded by divine fire. This fire also teaches the believer to distinguish between fear and awareness. Fear shrinks the heart, awareness strengthens it. As the verses burn within, fear evaporates like mist before sunlight. The believer feels taller, more grounded, more certain, not because of their own strength, but because the flame of revelation has settled inside them. The hidden fire of Al-Baqarah purifies intentions as well. It burns away hypocrisy, ego, and the subtle pride that weakens spiritual protection. With each recitation, the heart becomes lighter, cleaner, more capable of receiving divine aid. The fire refines the soul until only sincerity remains, and sincerity is the strongest shield of all. The unseen fire also reshapes the believer's inner landscape. What once felt dark or chaotic becomes ordered and illuminated. Thoughts soften, emotions settle, and the inner self becomes spacious and clear. In such a heart, harmful influences find no foothold. The fire burns continuously, not violently but steadily, like a lamp guided by divine breath. This fire is not metaphorical. In the unseen world, it is real, a barrier of radiant light that jinn fear instinctively. They recognize its origin, for it reminds them of the first command they witnessed. The fire is a reminder of divine authority, a reminder that the word of Allah governs every realm, visible and invisible. As the believer continues reciting, the fire becomes a permanent guest. It remains even when the voice grows silent. It remains when the believer sleeps or travels. Its presence is constant, its protection unwavering, so long as the heart remains connected to remembrance. This is why Al-Baqarah is feared. Its protection does not end when the recitation ends. The hidden fire also awakens spiritual courage. A believer once overwhelmed by unseen disturbances gradually becomes confident, serene, and inwardly strong. The heart learns that protection is not external, it is carried within. This courage itself becomes fire, burning away the roots of fear. There are times when the believer feels a sudden peace descend during recitation. This peace is not the absence of struggle, it is the result of the fire clearing the path. Peace is what remains after the unseen retreats. It is the fragrance of divine presence left behind as the flames complete their work. In its highest form, this hidden fire becomes a reflection of divine mercy. It does not burn to harm, it burns to heal. It clears the soul of burdens the heart cannot carry alone. It strengthens faith, brightens the spirit, and draws the believer closer to Allah. Darkness leaves, but something far greater enters. The seeker realizes the truth Ibn Arabi hinted at. The fire within these words is not separate from the believer. It awakens the fire that already existed in the soul. The fire of faith, the fire of love, the fire of remembrance. And when these two flames meet, no force of the unseen can remain. Only light endures. Every time the believer begins reciting Surah Al-Baqarah, something far greater than sound is released into the unseen. The words carry an authority older than creation, a command that reverberates through realms we cannot see. Ibn Arabi taught that divine speech is not merely uttered. It at times echoes asterisk, and this echo is what the unseen fears. Even a single verse carries the original power of be, and this power rearranges every hidden force that hears it. The echo does not fade like ordinary noise. It expands, traveling through the unseen like ripples moving across water. Angels recognize it instantly and descend with tranquility, while harmful forces recoil from its approach. They know this echo is not the believer's voice. It is the resonance of divine decree, flowing through human breath. The seeker becomes a vessel, and the verse becomes a command sent into the hidden world. When the recitation is sincere, the echo sharpens. It cuts through layers of unseen distortion, dissolving whispers that once troubled the heart. Darkness depends on confusion, but the echo carries clarity. It exposes falsehood dismantles illusions, and announces that the space now belongs to Allah's protection. Harmful forces feel this clarity like a lightning flash through their domain. Ibn Arabi taught that true authority is silent, it does not need to shout. The Bible speaks softly through these verses, yet the unseen hears it as thunder. Each recitation becomes a reminder of the original command that shaped existence. The echo of divine speech is a reminder that everything created remains under the same authority that called it into being. No jinn, no whisper, no shadow can resist this reminder. The echo also returns to the heart of the reciter. It does not only radiate outward, it comes inward like a tide returning home. This inward echo strengthens the soul, giving it courage and grounding. It reassures the believer that they are never speaking alone. They are accompanied by the authority of the one whose words they carry. This is why recitation brings peace, even when no change is visible. In the unseen, the echo creates boundaries. It draws lines that harmful forces cannot cross. These boundaries are not built by human will. They are formed by divine permission. As the echo spreads, it reshapes the spiritual landscape, closing pathways that once allowed unseen disturbances to approach the believer. What was once open becomes sealed, and what was once uncertain becomes guarded. The echo of Al-Baqarah also wakes the angels assigned to protect the believer. They respond not to the voice itself, but to the divine command embedded within the verse. This echo intensifies their presence, strengthens their guarding, and sharpens their vigilance. The unseen world sees this increase in light and withdraws, knowing the space is now under watch. Sometimes, the believer feels a weight lifting during recitation. This sensation is the echo traveling through the heart, dissolving the burdens the mind cannot name. The unseen often attaches itself to heaviness, but when the echo moves through, it breaks those attachments. The believer breathes more easily, thinks more clearly, and feels a new spaciousness inside. The authority within these verses also speaks directly to hidden forces. It reminds them of their limits, their origin, and the command they cannot disobey. Every recitation proclaims, asterisk, "This space belongs to the one who owns the heavens and the earth, asterisk." Darkness does not argue with this proclamation, it flees, not out of choice, but out of recognition. The echo does not remain confined to walls or rooms. It lingers in the air long after the voice grows silent. It settles into objects, into corners, into the very atmosphere of the home. The unseen feels this lingering presence and keeps its distance. The home becomes a fortress, built not from bricks, but from remembrance. Within the believer, the echo builds spiritual authority. It strengthens faith, sharpens intuition, and awakens inner sight. The believer begins sensing when something unseen shifts, when a whisper approaches, or when peace fills the room. This heightened awareness is one of the hidden gifts of recitation, a quiet empowerment that grows with every verse spoken. Ibn Arabi wrote that divine authority travels through sound like fire through dry grass. When the believer recites, this authority moves swiftly through the unseen, burning away every trace of spiritual harm. The recitation becomes not only a shield, but a cleansing wind that sweeps through the entire domain of the believer. The echo also aligns the heart with divine purpose. It brings the believer out of distraction and into presence. In this presence, divine protection becomes natural, effortless, and continuous. The heart feels anchored, and the soul feels watched over. The unseen cannot disturb a heart that is aligned with divine authority. The echo acts like a beacon. It calls angels closer and drives harmful forces farther away. It signals that the believer is connected, aware, and protected. This beacon burns brightly in the unseen world, even if the believer is unaware of its glow. Darkness sees this light and avoids it instinctively. Even when recited in a whisper, the authority remains unchanged. The echo is not tied to volume. A soft recitation spoken with sincerity carries more force than a loud one spoken mechanically. Divine authority responds to the heart, not the tongue. The unseen listens to the intention behind the sound. Sometimes the echo feels like warmth spreading through the chest. Other times, it feels like a cool breeze brushing through the room. These sensations are traces of spiritual movement, signs that the unseen is responding to the recitation. The heart recognizes these signs even before the mind understands them. The authority within these words also raises the believer's rank in the unseen. Harmful forces recognize the strength of those who carry the Qur'an, not by memory, but by sincerity. They see the believer strengthened by divine light, and they retreat. Respect in the unseen is not given, it is earned through remembrance. As the believer continues reciting, the echo becomes part of their spiritual identity. It follows them wherever they go to sleep, to work, into solitude, into difficulty. The unseen senses this echo as a guardian that never leaves the believer's side. This is why disturbances weaken, whispers fade, and peace grows. In the deepest sense, the echo of Al-Baqarah is a reminder that divine authority is not distant. It flows through human breath, through mortal voices, through hearts that tremble with longing. Every recitation reconnects the believer to this authority, turning them into a vessel of divine protection. The seeker learns that they do not recite alone. Their voice becomes a pathway for divine command, and the unseen world bends to that command. Every verse spoken sends an echo through creation, an echo that establishes peace, restores balance, and reminds all beings that the authority of Allah governs every realm. There is a fortress that rises without bricks, without walls, without the sound of construction. It is built from the radiance of Surah Al-Baqarah, a light that forms boundaries the unseen cannot break. Ibn Arabi said that true protection is not what surrounds the body, but what envelops the soul. When these verses are recited, that enveloping begins. It is as if the home becomes wrapped in a layer of light that confuses every shadow trying to approach. This fortress is unseen to human eyes, yet unmistakable to anything that moves in the hidden world. Jinn sense its formation before a single word is completed. They feel the rise of divine light like a shifting wind, carrying a message they cannot ignore. Asterisk, this place is guarded. Asterisk, the fortress does not attack. It simply exists with such authority that harm loses all ability to enter. The unseen retreats instinctively, recognizing a barrier formed by revelation itself. The light of Al-Baqarah does not accumulate in one place. It spreads through corners, under doorways, across ceilings, into spaces where the believer never imagined unseen disturbances lived. This spreading light fills the domain, like water filling a vessel. Every crack becomes sealed. Every spiritual opening becomes protected. The home becomes a refuge where tranquility settles like a soft blanket. Ibn Arabi taught that light has intelligence. It knows where to go, what to cleanse, what to protect. The fortress built by Al-Baqarah is shaped by this intelligence. It knows the weaknesses of the believer's environment. It knows the hidden paths through which whispers tried to enter. It strengthens every vulnerable point without needing the believer to identify them. Divine light does not require a map. It becomes the map. This fortress is not rigid. It is alive. It breathes with the recitation. With every verse spoken, the walls of light grow thicker, stronger, more radiant. They do not fade when the reciter stops. They linger, holding their shape long after the voice is silent. The unseen feels this lingering presence and keeps its distance, knowing light remains where Qur'an has passed. The believer may feel this fortress as a deep sense of peace that fills the room after recitation. The air becomes calmer, heavier with serenity. The mind settles, the heart loosens. These sensations are the human experience of a spiritual structure rising around them. It is protection, but more than that, it is anchoring. the heart feels held. Some people wonder why homes without Quranic recitation feel heavy or restless. It is because the unseen world moves freely there, unchallenged. But when Al-Baqarah is recited, the entire balance shifts. What once roamed without resistance now finds its movement restricted. The fortress does not chase darkness. It simply makes the environment incompatible with its existence. Darkness suffocates where light thrives. This fortress also extends inward. The heart becomes a protected sanctuary steeped in remembrance. Negative thoughts that once entered easily now struggle to cross the luminous threshold. Anxiety weakens. Spiritual confusion fades. The believer's inner world becomes as guarded as the space around them. Protection outside begins with protection inside. Ibn Arabi described spiritual protection as a garden not guarded by weapons, but by light. The fortress of Al-Baqarah is such a garden. Angels gather around its perimeter, drawn by the radiance of divine words. Their presence amplifies the fortress, increasing its strength until the unseen senses not one guardian but many. Darkness knows when angels surround a home, and it flees. As the believer recites regularly, the fortress becomes permanent. It no longer rises and falls with each session. It becomes rooted in the environment, maintained by the angels who remain stationed within its walls. Over time, disturbances that once repeated slowly fade, unable to regain access. The home becomes a space of purity, where only what is allowed by Allah may enter. This fortress also influences the emotions of those who live within it. Children sleep more peacefully. Elders feel more calm. Arguments lessen. The heart softens. These changes are not accidental. They are the effects of living within a space guarded by divine light. Even those who do not understand the recitation feel the blessing of its protection. Sometimes, the believer feels a sudden sense of safety, even without knowing why. This is the fortress responding to subtle movements in the unseen. It adjusts itself, tightens its boundaries, and reinforces weak points. The believer may never notice the disturbance because the fortress intercepted it before it reached the heart. Such is the precision of divine protection. The fortress of Al-Baqarah strengthens the believer's spiritual presence as well. Their soul begins to shine more brightly in the unseen world. Jinn recognize this glow, the unmistakable mark of someone wrapped in divine protection. They avoid such a soul, for approaching them is like flying into a burning sun. The fortress protects the believer not only in their home, but wherever they go. This invisible structure also makes harmful whispers weaker. Thoughts that once entered forcefully now appear faint, like distant echoes. The believer gains mental clarity, emotional resilience, and spiritual confidence. They realize they are no longer battling alone. The fortress stands beside them, around them, and within them. Ibn Arabi spoke of light as the only true weapon against darkness. The fortress, built by Al-Baqarah, is made entirely of this weapon. Not a weapon of violence, but a weapon of illumination. It reveals the truth, and darkness cannot survive truth. Wherever this fortress rises, falsehood dissolves like smoke in the wind. The unseen respects this fortress. It recognizes its source. Even the most rebellious jinn bow to the authority carried within the verses that built it. They do not challenge the walls of light because they know what stands behind them. The command of Allah, the Most High, the one whose words need no defender. As the believer continues reciting, the fortress becomes an extension of their spiritual identity. They walk with confidence, sleep with peace, and live with a sense of grounding that cannot be shaken. The unseen world watches this light with caution, knowing it cannot draw near. In time, the believer realizes that this fortress is not external. It is the echo of Allah's mercy manifesting in their world. A mercy that shields, guides, and secures. A mercy that builds walls no enemy can penetrate. A mercy that transforms the home into a sanctuary and the heart into a throne of divine remembrance. With each recitation of Al-Baqarah, the invisible fortress grows, brightens, and deepens until it becomes a permanent shield, a silent guardian, a radiant sign that where the Qur'an resides, no darkness may dwell. Falsehood survives only in the absence of truth. It stands like a fragile structure built from whispers, shadows, and illusions, impressive from a distance, empty up close. But when the words of Surah Al-Baqarah enter a space, revelation descends with a weight that falsehood cannot bear. Ibn Arabi taught that truth is not something that times argues, times with darkness. It simply appears, and darkness collapses under its presence. Such is the force woven into these verses. The moment the recitation begins, the spiritual atmosphere shifts. What once hid comfortably in the corners of the unseen begins to tremble. Falsehood senses the approach of something ancient, something authoritative, something it cannot stand against. The verses carry a weight, not measured in sound, but in divine reality. This weight presses upon the unseen until every distortion breaks apart. Falsehood thrives on confusion, twisting thoughts, stirring fear, planting doubt. But revelation clarifies. Each verse is like a beam of light revealing hidden pathways, exposing deceptions, and aligning the heart with what is real. As the believer continues reading, the layers of confusion peel away, leaving no space for falsehood to cling. Clarity becomes the light that dissolves every illusion. Ibn Arabi spoke of truth as a mountain and falsehood as a shadow. When the mountain rises, the shadow disappears, not through battle, but through the simple presence of something greater. Surah Al-Baqarah carries this mountain-like presence. Its verses stand firm, immovable, radiant. Falsehood, which survives only through absence of light, fades instantly. In the unseen, falsehood appears as a fragile web stretched across spiritual space. Recitation tears through this web effortlessly. What harmful forces once used to influence hearts becomes undone, leaving them powerless. The words of Allah do not negotiate with deception. They override it. Their authority ends what falsehood began. The believer may feel this as a sudden lightness in the heart, or a quiet calm settling over previously troubled thoughts. These are signs that falsehood has begun to crumble. The weight of revelation presses against every emotional burden, every unseen disturbance, every false belief. It breaks them until only truth remains. Falsehood cannot survive remembrance. When the tongue moves in recitation, the heart awakens and the soul rises. Darkness has no access to a heart filled with divine remembrance. It loses its grip, loses its voice, loses its influence. What once felt heavy becomes manageable. What once frightened becomes harmless. When revelation enters a home, falsehood has no corner to hide. It retreats into cracks where light has not yet touched, but even those are eventually illuminated by the verses. Surah Al-Baqarah leaves no space unattended. Its light expands until every shadow becomes visible, and once visible, that shadow dissolves. Ibn Arabi described falsehood as a guest that survives only when unnoticed. Recitation exposes it. It shines a light into the unseen, revealing whispers the believer never knew existed. This exposure is its defeat. Falsehood cannot function when recognized. It must flee, for its strength lies in deception, not confrontation. The weight of revelation also breaks false fears, the kind that grow silently in the heart without explanation. These fears collapse under the reality of divine presence. The believer feels courage returning, not through their own power, but through the support of truth. The unseen senses this change and withdraws, knowing the heart is no longer fragile. Every verse spoken becomes a blow to falsehood, not through force, but through truth. False beliefs, harmful attachments, and spiritual distortions crumble when the believer recites with sincerity. The heart becomes clearer, the mind steadier, and the spirit more aligned with divine guidance. Revelation reconstructs what falsehood once damaged. There are moments when the believer feels a sudden quietness during recitation. This quietness is the sound of falsehood collapsing. It is the soul recognizing truth, the heart accepting clarity, and the unseen world adjusting to the presence of divine authority. In this quiet, the believer experiences a shift, a doorway opening towards spiritual alignment. Falsehood also exists within actions and habits. It disguises itself as comfort, laziness, or distraction. But the light of Al-Baqarah exposes these disguises. It shows the believer the subtle ways they drift from their purpose. This revelation is not harsh, it is merciful. It allows the believer to see, to correct, and to realign. This surah carries harmonizing power. Falsehood disrupts the inner landscape, creating tension and restlessness. Al-Baqarah restores harmony. It settles emotional turbulence, clears mental fog, and soothes spiritual wounds. The believer feels centered, grounded, and protected. This is the mercy hidden within revelation. The unseen forces that cling to falsehood scatter as the surah's light expands. They cannot remain in a space where truth has taken residence. The weight of revelation pushes them out, sealing the environment behind them. This is not merely protection, it is purification. As falsehood crumbles, the believer begins to see life with renewed sight. Perspectives shift, priorities become clearer. The soul awakens to realities long forgotten. This awakening itself is a sign that the heart is aligning with divine will. Truth becomes the foundation upon which the believer walks. Ibn Arabi taught that the heart illuminated by revelation becomes a mirror reflecting divine light. Falsehood cannot distort a mirror that reflects the real. The more the believer recites, the more polished this mirror becomes, until the soul shines with a clarity that cannot be shaken. The collapse of falsehood is not a loss, it is liberation. It frees the believer from illusions, fears, and unseen influences that once burdened them. It is the release of spiritual weight, the clearing of old debris, the opening of inner space where divine tranquility can settle. The seeker realizes the truth. Revelation does not fight falsehood, it outshines it, and what is outshined cannot remain. Surah Al-Baqarah brings a weight so pure, so celestial, that every lie, every whisper, every shadow collapses under it. Only truth stands, only light endures, only Allah remains. There are whispers in the unseen that do not come as voices but as subtle nudges, unease in the heart, heaviness in the chest, restlessness without cause. These whispers thrive when the soul forgets its source. But when Surah Al-Baqarah is recited, a force awakens that silences them completely. This is not silence born of suppression, it is silence born of authority. Ibn Arabi taught that when divine light rises, every lesser sound bows to it. The unseen recognizes this surah before the first verse is even completed. Harmful whispers scatter like dust before a storm. They sense a presence greater than themselves, moving through the space, a command wrapped in light. This presence does not argue with them, it simply renders them irrelevant. Their influence breaks, their voice fades, and their hold dissolves as though they never existed. Whispers depend on vulnerability, on moments when the heart feels empty or disconnected. Surah Al-Baqarah fills those empty spaces with remembrance, leaving no cracks for unseen disturbances to enter. The heart becomes occupied by light, and light is the one thing every whisper fears. Where remembrance flows, whispers die. Ibn Arabi wrote that some verses do not merely times protect times the heart, they times reset times it. Al-Baqarah realigns the inner world, straightening hidden imbalances that whispers feed on. With each verse, the heart becomes steadier, calmer, and more centered. Whispers lose their ground. They cannot influence a soul that stands firmly in the presence of the real. These unseen whispers also attempt to cloud thoughts, creating confusion and inner noise. but the recitation acts like a wind sweeping through the mind. It clears the fog, sharpens awareness, and restores spiritual clarity. The believer begins to recognize which thoughts come from the soul and which come from unseen influences, and recognition itself silences the whispers. When the verse flows from the believer's tongue with sincerity, the unseen hears not a human voice, but a divine command. This command echoes through realms beyond sight, pushing back every dark intention. The whispers grow faint, then vanish, unable to withstand the authority embedded in the recitation. It is not the reciter who silences them. It is the truth carried in the words. A home where Al-Baqarah is recited gains an atmosphere the unseen cannot penetrate. The air feels lighter, the shadows feel thinner, and tranquility settles like a soft veil. Whispers that once lingered around the edges of the environment no longer find a place to anchor. They flee, for the space becomes inhospitable to anything impure. In the heart, the silence that follows recitation is not emptiness, it is healing. It is the soul entering a state where unseen interference can no longer reach. Ibn Arabi taught that true stillness is not the absence of sound, but the presence of divine companionship. In this stillness, every whisper of the unseen fades like a candle in the wind. Sometimes the believer feels the shift immediately, a calm rising within, a warmth spreading in the chest, or a sudden clarity in thought. These are signs that the whispers have been cut off. The spiritual lines they once used to approach the heart are severed, sealed by the radiance of revelation. Whispers lose their influence when the believer becomes aware of their origin. Surah Al-Baqarah awakens this awareness. It sharpens the inner sense, allowing the believer to recognize spiritual disturbances long before they form. Awareness itself becomes a shield, and the unseen cannot touch a heart that sees clearly. The unseen respects those who carry the Qur'an, not because of memorization alone, but because the verses transform the soul into a being of light. Whispers cannot compete with such radiance. They quiet themselves in the presence of a believer whose heart has been lit by the authority of Al-Baqarah. When the believer recites regularly, whispers become rare. They lose consistency, then strength, then existence. What once felt like constant disturbance becomes distant. What once troubled becomes trivial. What once frightened becomes powerless. This is the quiet miracle of revelation. The authority of this surah is not aggressive, it is majestic. It does not fight whispers, it simply reveals their nothingness. Falsehood collapses, fear weakens, doubt dissolves. The heart becomes a place where only truth can remain. And in a place where truth lives, whispers die before they form. Ibn Arabi spoke of wounds that are healed not by effort, but by illumination. Al-Baqarah provides such illumination. It reaches the hidden wounds. Whispers cling to insecurity, fear, loneliness, and fills them with divine presence. Once healed, those inner wounds no longer give whispers a place to grow. Even when the believer sleeps, the silence created by the recitation remains. Whispers that once disturbed dreams or caused restless nights no longer find a doorway. Angels guard the space, filling it with peace that extends even into sleep. The unseen knows this is a protected soul. As the fortress of revelation strengthens within the believer, whispers become too small to be noticed. Their presence becomes like dust, floating in a room full of sunlight, visible for a moment, then gone. They lose the ability to influence, to frighten, or to distract. Light absorbs them effortlessly. The believer's heart becomes so illuminated that whispers cannot even approach. The unseen world recognizes a soul strengthened by divine remembrance and keeps its distance. This silence becomes the believer's natural state, a state where inner peace is unshakable. The seeker learns a profound truth. Surah Al-Baqarah does not silence whispers through force. It silences them through presence, through truth, through the light of divine speech. And once this light enters the heart, no whisper of the unseen can rise again. What remains is not emptiness but peace, not silence but divine nearness, not fear but certainty, a certainty rooted in the knowledge that the one who protects you is greater than anything that whispers against you. Surah Al-Baqarah is not simply a shield, it is a declaration that the believer does not walk unguarded, does not sleep unprotected, and does not stand alone in the unseen battlefield that surrounds every soul. These verses carry a power that no jinn can challenge, because their strength is not borrowed, it is divine. Ibn Arabi taught that when the truth descends, all false realities collapse before it. And this surah is truth in its purest form, a light that rises without effort, a command that moves without sound, a protection that stands even when the believer feels weak. The unseen world recognizes its authority long before the human heart fully understands it. Let this be your reminder. Every time you recite even a single verse, you are calling upon a force older than fear, brighter than shadow, and stronger than any whisper that tries to reach you. You are aligning yourself with a protection that angels honor and jinn dread. So hold on to this surah. Let it fill your home, your heart, your nights, your silence. Recite it with sincerity, even if your voice trembles. For every letter carries its own soldier of light, every verse builds its own fortress, and every recitation announces to the unseen, this soul is under the protection of Allah, enter not. And when you live beneath that protection, no darkness can remain, no whisper can rise, and no unseen force can touch what Allah has shielded.